Hi, and welcome back to our video series on decision making using your infotuition. I'm Shelley Row, and today we're going to continue our conversation about overthinking decisions. So remember we talked about the cognition intuition balance model, and recall that balanced decision making balances inputs from both your brain and your gut, from your cognition and intuition, from thinking and feeling. And that balance point is represented by the concept of infotuition. However, overthinking is out of balance. So the last time you used questions to question your own brain, like, why am I making this so hard? And you query your brain about that nagging feeling that holds you back. And your brain answered with either fear or insight. Now, either way, you have to resolve the nagging feeling to solve overthinking it. So today, now let's look at resolving the nagging feeling that comes from fear. So now I have to tell you, fear is by far and away the most common reason that I see behind the nagging feeling. It happens to all of us, no matter our level in the organization. And that's because the brain is exquisitely wired to register fear. So now fear comes in many forms. We have the fear of being overlooked, of standing out, of making the wrong decision, the fear of change. Fear can also show up as a behavior, like an over-reliance on rules, processes, and procedures, or an over-dependence on approval or consensus, or maybe over-analyzing facts and figures. Now, of course, all of those are important, but when they become a crutch, that's when we start overthinking it. Now, as we said, you have to resolve the nagging feeling from fear to solve overthinking it. Resolve it to solve it. So to show you the steps, I'm going to talk you through an example from my experience while you do the same steps for your own overthinking situation. Okay, so right now, just recall a time that you overthought a decision. Now, frequently I'll hear like personnel decisions are a really tough situation. Right? So now here's my example, and it was a personnel situation. You see, I was a young manager, and it was the first time that I ever had to fire somebody. And I overthought it like crazy. I lost sleep. I studied all of the rules, processes, and procedures to great detail. I tried to get my boss to make the decision for me, but to his credit, he wouldn't do it. So finally, out of sheer exhaustion, I did the process that we're talking about and working with here today. So I asked my brain, why am I making this so hard? What's bothering me about this decision? And that's your first step too. What question can you use to query your own brain so that you understand the nagging feeling? Whatever that question is, write it down. Now, we talked about that in a previous video, so you've been practicing it. Now, next, pay attention when your brain answers. Is it fear or is it insight? Now, in the last part of the video, we talked about insight. Now, in my example, my brain answered those questions with two answers, both from fear. The first answer is that I was afraid my boss wouldn't agree with my decision. So what is it for you? Now be honest and listen to that little voice inside. When you get this far, dig in and say, well, so in my case, why was I so fixated on my boss's approval? Well, that's when I realized that I was depending on his opinion of me to determine my opinion of me. Now that is not a good place to be, and it is certainly not a place to be for career growth. Now, the second answer my brain came up with was actually my mother's voice. You know, my mother always said, "Now, Shelley, you be nice." And my brain concluded that firing someone was definitely not nice, and it showed up for me as a fear of violating a value system. So think about your overthinking situation. Sit with it if necessary and listen inside. Once you've noticed and named the nagging feeling and understand it better, it's time for 3 big questions. Here they are. What do you have to give up to let go of this fear? And for me, it was giving up the need for my boss's approval on everything and to redefine what it meant to be nice. Second, are you willing to give it up? It's a fair question. It's a fair question. These are deeply held beliefs, and you have to choose if you're willing to give it up. And third, this is the big one. If you give it up, what are you now freed up to do? What are you now freed up to do if you let go of all that? For me, if I let go of all those fears, I was now freed up to make the best decision for my agency. Now, if you can dig in through all of that, you can resolve the nagging feeling from fear. Now, it might seem that that's just way too hard, but here's the secret. See, we only have just a few fears that control and influence our decision making in an unproductive way. So once you go through this process once, then the next time you're much more quickly able to ascertain that fear. And if you practice it just a little bit more, then you very quickly recognize those fears. So for me today, I can recognize a situation that's fear-based and quickly say, you know, oh, that's my boss thing, or that's my be nice thing. I'm going to let that go and I can move on. You see, it just takes practice. So make the time, and the next time you're overthinking it, go through these steps, ask yourself those questions, and practice. And you'll be able to resolve it, to solve it. Thanks, and I'll see you the next time.